So ladies and gentlemen, we now arrive at a very important moment in today's seminar. It is my privilege to invite a senior policymaker who has consistently played an important role in shaping tourism development and strategic direction in India. Mr. Suman Billa, IAS, Additional Secretary and Director General, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, has been instrumental in driving several transformative tourism initiatives and strengthening India's position as a global tourism destination. Throughout the day, many important themes have emerged: professionalization, safety systems, trainings, regulations, sustainability, accountability, and global competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Suman Billa, IAS, Additional Secretary and General, Director General, Ministry of Tourism, the way forward for Indian adventure tourism. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Bajaj, colleagues from adventure travel industry. It's good to be amongst friends again. I'm fully aware of that you're at the fag end of a very long day of deliberations, and I'm probably standing between you and dinner. So let me try and keep this really quick. I will keep it high level. So I was looking at the agenda and what all things are discussed today, and I've actually noted down about 11 points that I want to flag them to you without any, fluff, so to speak. So we were at Kevadia last week for the State Tourism Secretaries Conference, and Ajit Bajaj was also there. And then he told us that India's ranking in the adventure tourism space has improved from 96 in 2020 to 38th rank in 2024. So of course we find it to be very flattering and we were very pleased with that, but I'm sure that that is happening mostly by the increase in the size of the market because of the rapid growth that India is seeing, rather than any concerted work that we have done to bring a method to the madness that is happening on adventure tourism in India. So I think the underlying principle that we need to understand is that India's demography is changing very fast. We are the youngest country in the world by the age of our population. We are also the fastest growing large economy in the world for over a decade now, which means that we have money, we have the aspiration of the youth, which makes adventure travel a very straightforward fit for youngsters. So today, I think our youth seek experiences, they seek activities, and they want to do things that challenge them, because in doing so, they also discover themselves. So one of the things is today, I think when we look at adventure tourism, 10 years ago when I was Joint Secretary, adventure tourism used to be clubbed under what is called the niche tourism segment. And there used to be adventure, golf, polo, etc. But I think that has become outdated today, because adventure can no longer be called niche tourism. I think we should see it as a major growth vertical for tourism. Which takes me to my second point, and which is something all of you know, is that India is naturally endowed, and I don't need to explain to you that we have the mountains and we have the rivers and everything that is there in between. But I think being naturally endowed is only a necessary precondition for growth. It does not by itself ensure that we will have a strong and robust industry. If we have to do that, it is collective work that all of us in the room need to do to build it into an industry. So the third point that I want to flag is that growth is something that cannot be left to chance. It is not something that happens by accident. Today, one of the most important things that we need to recognize is just because the demand is so high, whether we like it, we do not like it, growth is going to happen. I think there is a certain inevitability to the growth of adventure tourism in this country. Because there is a lot of demand, there is entrepreneurial energy, and what this means is that growth is going to be rapid. but it's also going to be fragmented and it's also going to be unstructured. So, what does it mean when you have rapid growth which is fragmented and unstructured? It means it implies a risk for the consumer, which the speaker before me has so eloquently flagged before us. It, it also is a risk for the operators. It is a risk for the destinations that have these activities, and in essence, by extension, it is a risk to all of our credibility. So I think we need to bring some method to how we want to do this thoughtfully to optimize the outcomes for all of us in the room and for the country as a whole. So I think the first principle that we need to work on is that we need to take safety as the core foundation for what we believe. And the speaker before me has also spoken so much about safety and how as an operator that you need to structure yourself. Because adventure activity by definition means that there is some element of managed risk which is inherent in it. But I think what we should understand is that managed risk is entirely different from unmanaged uncertainty. If I get onto a raft, there should be a certain mathematical, certainty that, this is how it is going to be. If you're going to sit in the raft and if there are too many unknowns that we do not know, whether it's going to flip, whether it's going to equipment is going to fail, that is not the situation where we need to be in. And I think if we have to avoid that, we need to ensure that we have proper certification for our equipment, we have operator accreditation, we have robust standard operating procedures, and whenever we have incidents, those incidents are reported not just to understand how many times the system has failed, but also to that it becomes a learning point for us on how to avoid those going forward. We must have insurance coverage, emergency evacuation. All of these become very, very critical for us to operate. And I think it's very vital for us to ensure that we put these into place. The fifth point that I want to flag is about consumer rights. As an industry, are we articulating the rights of the consumer? So if I'm a consumer and if I have come to you, I have every right to know whether the operator is authorized, whether the equipment that he has is duly certified. If something were to go wrong, is there some insurance cover that I get to sort of take care of myself? Or if I am unhappy with the service, is there any mechanism in which I can flag my grievances and seek a redress? I think these are all very important. And unless we have these, it will be very difficult for us to build trust amongst consumers. And I think in a business like this, trust is the real cornerstone of what we want to do. So essentially, if you have to build trust, you will have to move into the zone of regulation. But regulation is something, again, that you need to be very cautious about how you approach. When we regulate, we want to ensure that there are guardrails so that the bad players are kept out and the good players have a reasonable opportunity to do the business. But we should also ensure that regulation does not translate itself into roadblocks, that it stops every operator from doing every legitimate activity. So I think this fine line that we need to discern is something that is important on how do we distinguish between excessive control and unregulated growth. And therefore, I think when we set up this regulation, and this is something that the government and the industry should do together, we need to ensure that there are clear norms which are understandable evenly by everybody. There must be permissions which are given in a transparent manner. There must be accountability which is well established at every point of the transaction. Last week I was listening to a podcast, and one of the remarkable things that I found was that Amazon as a online platform succeeds so well because the liability is very well established between the manufacturer, between the warehousing agent, between the logistics company, etc. So that if at all there is a complaint, it is immediately flagged to the person who is responsible, and that person is accountable, and he takes the cost of whatever is the deficiency in service. So I think even as we do our adventure activities, it is very important for us to fix that accountability at every level so that it is not a finger pointing exercise. If something were to go wrong, it's because of him, it's because of this person. But I think we need to establish that clear protocol. And I think if we are able to do that, we will be able to ensure not just compliance, but we need to ensure that our compliance is consistent across all times and across all of the people who choose to come for their adventure experience with us. My seventh point is probably more important, and this is something that I've been thinking of for a while from an infrastructure perspective. I think what we need to do is that we need to build these large adventure hubs in the country. Because today growth is happening, but growth is happening in a scattered way because there's an operator A who goes, finds a site, and starts an activity at some place. There is somebody else who goes and does this. But I think there is a great virtue in consolidating these things. So, to my mind, I think if we are able to create some method to this in which even as activity expands, but we bring some amount of coherent design to these to optimize outcomes, I think this is something that can work. So, for example, I think when we talk about Rishikesh, it can be a hub for river adventure. Beer Billing can probably be a hub for paragliding and some aero sports or something like that. So, what does a hub do? So, to my mind, I think a hub is important because it helps us ensure that there is destination planning. It helps us ensure that there is zoning of the activity, the area, etc. that we do. It helps us ensure that there is carrying capacity management there. We will ensure that there will be certified operators who are using the hub. There are robust rescue systems. There is weather intelligence. That's something that the speaker ahead of me just spoke. There is discoverability from a publicity point of view for somebody who wants to go. There are visitor amenities which are common to all the visitors who come to a hub, like washrooms or whatever it is, accommodation, and of course, seamless connectivity. So, to my mind, if we are able to, we need to stop thinking small in terms of my camp or my activity at a place. I think there is great virtue in bringing it all together because as the size of the market goes, there is just not going to be enough space for all of us to go and spread all over. And I think when we have to put money on the table and optimize resources, it's an excellent idea to bring different players within a compact area so that we are able to control it better and we are able to make it more optimal. And one of the things that we have done is the Honorable Prime Minister has said that we will create 50 world-class destinations in the next 3 to 4 years. And there's a large budgetary outlay which is put on that. So perhaps we could consider developing one or two adventure hubs in partnership with the state so that we have something which has adequate critical mass, which stands shoulders, head and shoulders along with the rest of the best adventure tourism destinations around the world. So my eighth point is, of course, also something that the speaker before me had spoken. It's about professional talent and how do we ensure that we create an ecosystem of professional talent. Like how do we have instructors, guides, equipment specialists, etc. All of them who are well trained and who have been certified through a transparent framework that we have set up. We also need to ensure that there is a periodic uptraining and retraining of these people so that they are on top of the game. And of course, I think it's one thing is to give certification. I think the most important thing today is to ensure that there is a way, there's a digital library where all these certificates are kept and which are verifiable, because there are incidents in this country where people are used to, claiming expertise in things that they really do not have. So I think to make it possibly transparent, it's important to have a digital registry where all these certified people are there so that we are able to keep those who are not trained beyond the door. The ninth point that I want to flag is something that's important, that's dear to me, that is sustainability and carrying capacity, waste management, ecosystem protection are all very important. And we need to have responsible operating protocols as operators to ensure that we have sustainability. Because the moment we are not sustainable, I think our calling card of being an adventure tour operator will fail immediately. And I think that is very vital for us. The 10th point is on community. And because we operate in fragile landscapes with communities which are not very well endowed, I think it places a great deal of responsibility upon us to take them on truly as stakeholders along with us and not to leave them as bystanders. So I think there are opportunities in which we engage with local communities and create opportunities for them for livelihoods. It could be in guiding, it could be in transportation, it could be homestays. The idea is that we need to create these local entrepreneurship opportunities for them wherever we can, so that the community has a strong and abiding interest in the success of this industry. And in doing so, we also help the poorest and those who require our support the most. So the last and the 11th point that I want to flag is on public-private partnership, and the fact that there's so many of us from the government who have been here and there are so many of you from the industry are getting together and brainstorming here means that this is something that can only happen if both the government and the industry collaborate together, actively do so, and for the long haul. And I think one of the things that we need to clear about is that what is the role that the government will play and what is the role that the industry will play. I think the government can help with policy architecture, it can help with establishing standards, it can help with seeking convergence with other ministries and the state governments, and it can use its convening power to facilitate things for the industry. And I think the industry should also play a very vital role, probably more so than the government, because the industry must bring practical inputs that go into the making of a feasible policy. Industry must support with training, because the government that is not something that the government understands, but I think it's best done by the industry. Industry must take the responsibility for quality assurance. The industry must also take the responsibility for responsible growth of this sector, because not just grow the way that the wind blows, but grow by design and ensure that we grow in a way that is sustainable and we grow in a way that works for the country and for all of us. And therefore, I think to conclude, India has obviously three things that is going for it. It has a very large demand base, it has natural assets, and it has a lot of entrepreneurial energy. So I think the three most important elements that you need to make a success out of adventure tourism is already present with us. And I think what we need, and possibly what we lack now, is the first is we need to have a design, have a method. Growth will not happen and deliver results by accident. It will have to be an outcome of the thinking that all of us put together in this room, and we need to sort of design on the tomorrow that we want to see. And it will have to come from discipline in implementing what we want to do and the standards that we establish for ourselves. So to my mind, I have no doubt that India can be a powerhouse for adventure tourism. But my sense is that it will not happen by accident, but it will happen by way of deliberate design. And I think all of us in this room must envision and work towards a future that all of us aspire to. And I'm sure that we can do it, and I'm sure that this is the beginning of a very long journey together. But together, I'm very confident that we will be able to achieve the success that we so rightfully deserve. I thank you all for a patient hearing. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful and encouraging address. Your words have truly reinforced the importance of collaboration between government and industry in building a safer, stronger, and globally respected ecotourism for adventure tourism. Thank you so much, sir.